All right, welcome everyone, and welcome viewers to Swords Without Master at GauntletCon 2018. Uh, I'm Andrew, and I'd like my players to very briefly introduce themselves and their rogues for Swords Without Master.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm playing Titus Pantheon. He is a cosmic star wizard of sorts. All that deserves a name. He has a familiar. It's a pantheon, which is a cosmic star deer. So it's like a little deer, but all of its fur looks like star stuff, and it's sort of astrally here, but also somewhere else. He has the cloak of time, which allows him to move through time as he pleases when he wears it. Slip back and forward. The Angelarium are this constellation of cosmic interdimensional beings who sort of haunt Titus as he goes. Sometimes they're friends and patrons, sometimes they're foes. They're just these big interdimensional beings who he finds himself interacting with. And he carries Musalidum's staff, which is this auger's staff carved from the tree of life that the first one who was sort of like him that learned magic, Musalidum, she carved it, and everyone since then has used a more powerful version of it as it gets passed down through not quite eons, but through ages maybe. His glum feat heroic is to wait patiently as the peril grows, studying its every move, then in what seems to be the final moments fall back through time, armed with a parry for each thrust. And his jovial feat heroic is to call the cosmic star stuff that composes everything, demand that it reshape itself to his whim. And his trick is doom, and that doom will ask the question, how much longer until the astral ori crumbles? And that's Titus.
Hi, I'm River. I'm playing Live All That Deserves a Name. We have Terra Firma, the home that was the gods, imbued by the bones of the first. It's her room. We have Crackle with electricity for Geofuel with celerity and might. Her trick is Ill Fate. Beware the hubris of the gods, in which I may ignore one roll just made, and instead suffer a moral with a consequence that leads to this lesson. I've picked mostly because the people are really, really super powerful.
I'm Greg. I am playing Seski. Seski is the psychopomp of the gods. Gods may die too. You probably know a few, and Seski has collected them and ferried them across one of his things that deserves a name, which is the Everflow, the river upon which time floats. Seski is actually made of two parts. Ses, which is the graveyard where the gods are kept, and Ki, the blue blade that they carry. Feats heroic. Seski, when they're feeling glum, will reap the mortal souls who are beyond their mandate. When feeling jovial, Seski will breathe new life into inanimate objects and create the world anew. And then, of course, keeping with the whole tone, Seski has an inevitable foe, the end of all things.
I gotta say, this one's kind of a first for me. So I'm excited, though. Excited to see how it goes. So Swords Without Master is a game which plays out through a few different phases, and we move between the phases in order to accomplish different things. So we're going to open with what might be the most straightforward phase, which is the Rogues phase. So to start everything off, I, as the overplayer, and I'm going to put a roll for your party link in here, I'm going to roll 2 dice. And you'll notice that, Greg, that one of these dice is brightly colored, orange. The other one is purple. Can everyone distinguish those colors?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Awesome. Because being able to distinguish between them is super important. So, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Do I roll at the beginning of the scene?
You do roll to set your own tone.
Right. That's what I thought. So, I rolled a 1 on the glum die and a 3 on the jovial die, which means that the beginning tone of this entire scene, and I'm flipping the arrow around to show this, is going to be jovial. So vibrant, passionate, cacophonous, hot. I also picked an eidolon for this, and it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to show it here. So we've got like these bone bats, and that's what's going to fuel the scene. So the scene starts with
Magic card. Can you tell me what the name of it is so I can just drop the gap for a link?
It's marrow bats. I can't find the number on it, but there we go. So the scene opens on the plane of the dead, and everything is just this looming, ominous night, and there's sort of the billowing clouds and just a thundering somewhere from below, and all of you stand there. And now this is the point where which we call the thunder, where the danger makes itself apparent. There is a great calling out, a cacophonous calamity of voices above and overhead, and these hordes of bats made of nothing but clacking bone emerge from the sky and descend upon you. By the way, I'm going to cut briefly to brief people on the safety tools because I just remembered I should do that. For this game, we're going to be using a script change supplemented by the X card, as well as lines and veils. So we should have that discussion after I explain things. So script change and the X card are a way of managing content within the scene. The X card simply lets you throw it up when there's some content that you don't want to play through. And Roll for Your Party actually lets you anonymously put this up there. Make sure that your pop-up blocker is disabled, but if you click the X card button, you can type something in and it'll appear as a pop-up notification on that page. Script change can be used similarly, and there's 3 buttons for that. Fast forward means that we skip past whatever content we want to skip past. Pause means that we're just stopping play to take a little breather because you think you'd be okay playing through it, but you just need to collect yourself. And then rewind is the let's pull back and try that a different way for content reasons. So moving back to lines and veils. Lines and veils are a very old safety tool, and I'm implementing them here because sword and sorcery can have violent or otherwise mature themes. So a line is something that we just don't want to happen in the game, period. A veil is something where we acknowledge that it happens, but we're not going to go into it or describe it. So I'm going to start off by stating that I don't want sexual violence to be in the game, so I'm just going to draw a line there. If any of you have any particular lines or veils, now is when we're going to discuss that.
I don't have anything new I want to add. I'm comfortable using the X card, I think, as things come up, if something comes up, but I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the big one for me, so.
Same as River. That's the big one for me. So yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Great. So with that taken care of, we're ready to jump back into the fray. So what happens now is a process called the storm, where I, as the overplayer, start to describe the great threat that the rogues face. And here's the rule of the storm. You can do something called slipping and struggling, which means you cannot outright fail, but neither can you outright succeed in striking a blow against the storm. All you can do is struggle and slip and like try to make headway, but come up with nothing. The only way to actually do something in either direction is to roll the dice. And the dice can only be rolled by the person who holds them. So if you look at your sheet, there is... Oops. They disappeared. There we go. If you look at the character sheets, there are the dice right here. So I'm going to go back to the description now. So the bats wheel overhead with a chattering and a clattering, and I'm going to hand the dice to Titus. So the bats descend and sort of circle around Live the Forsaken. They swoop in and then dart away just out of reach. And as they circle around, they just summon up a mighty wind. And by the way, any of you can cut in with slipping and struggling.
Yeah.
If you and Rob, if you want to roll the dice, just let me know that you're rolling.
Yeah, I will stop you when we need to get
good.
I try to swat them away as you say they're just out of reach. I say, friends of yours, Titus.
Don't lose focus, Liv. They're just distractions. We're here for a reason. We need to get through the plains of hell.
Pretty distracting when they're taking chunks out of me.
And one of them like reels back into the sky and lets out like these screeching calls, these wild, savage screeching calls. And a horde of them just descend on one of the gauntlets, just scratching and clawing and trying to dig their way through it.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a moment. I'm gonna roll the dice here.
Okay.
So let's get a tone first.
Cool.
So I got a 6 and a 3. So we are jovial with nothing special going on.
Very good.
Yeah.
So now Rob is going to take a jovial action in response that actually accomplishes something.
So I love this image of the gauntlets on Liv are like just covered in bats on every side, and what's that look like or feel like? Like do the gauntlets give off any kind of energy, or is there a?
Oh yeah, I mean they're absolutely. I think they're sparking and.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean this is we're doing like metal on metal stuff, but like the claws of the bats are what's scraping off. So she's holding one of these above her head, and they're like whacking into it like a bird against a pane of glass.
Yeah, so I like this moment that there's these sparks being generated, and Titus sort of takes a minute and sets the staff down real firmly and starts. You can see there's lines connecting those sparks to this staff, and so it's almost like he's directing the lightning. So there's this like wait for a moment where more and more bats come and are breaking themselves against the gauntlets, releasing all this energy until Titus picks up the staff again.
Eventually the ground's going to give way, Titus.
But it picks up the staff again, and now it seems to be like full of that lightning, and it sort of arcs out and jumps from bat to bat to bat to bat until the sky for a moment like lights up with just a sheet of lightning that's all this interconnected like nodes and webs of all these bats.
Awesome.
Someday you're going to have to tell me where you found that.
So two things here now. Rob, can at this point pass off the dice if he feels like it, when he
Goodness,
feels
no.
like it. I'm going to go back to bringing the storm again, but I'm also going to point out, because I'm going to record this down now. Whenever somebody captures a moment or something that is just awesome and captures the essence of what you feel fantastical adventure is, you can write that down as a motif. So I'm going to write down lightning arcing across the bats. So for the first motif, all three of those blanks can be filled in with anything. There is a restriction once we get to the second and third motifs, but I'll get to that when we get there. So, so you just fill them and you arc them with lightning, and all the bones and all the bone bats fall to the ground, and everything is silent for a moment. And then, like, there's this clattering across all of them as the lightning jumps between them, and the bones start to whirl together like in a sort of bone twister, and they slowly
step
start
out of the grooves that had been cut by my feet in the ground. And of course, it's not even its final form, huh?
They slowly start to assemble themselves with the electricity arcing between them, with like violent purple flames, assemble themselves into this colossal figure who stands like at least 5 times as tall as any of you.
See, Liv, now they're all in one place, a very punchable place. I feel like you could take care of this. I'm going to hand you the dice.
And the Colossus sort of raises a hand, and this purple flame blazes bright from its hand.
Yes, and I am, since we're still jovial, the start of it is going to be jovial. She basically leaves a blur behind her and appears right in front of this Colossus. Brings back a fist, and then we're rolling.
Very good.
And it goes to Glum.
Okay.
So she hits it, and it scatters, and the bones fall, and she drops to the ground, and the bones start to clatter and move again. And she puts her hands to either side. The little boxes on the back of the gauntlets open up, and this same dark sort of energy that Colossus had reaches out of the gauntlets and starts picking up the bones. They all withdraw into the gauntlets.
Ooh.
Yes, nice and punchable.
So, in the distance, you hear this kind of roaring sound. And on the horizon, you see this movement. This movement that's very small in the distance, but it gets larger as it approaches. And you see there's a horde stretching from just horizon to horizon, it seems like. This horde of the dead and their skeletons, and they're all converging on the group. They're
Nicest places for us, Seski.
30 feet away, 20 feet away.
And Seski just sticks his hands into the ground, and the sort of these waters of time start to pool up around and at the feet of the skeletons, and we start to see their flesh form back on them, and they slow, but they're still coming.
Mm-hmm. And these, like, it's almost like they're a zombie horde at this point, just sort of spilling through the everflow that you're summoning up.
What was this supposed to do, says Key? But both gauntlets forward and they start like shooting flak out in the front of them.
Their faces are
Time they will
twisted in
return.
rage.
With time, they will
What was
return to
that?
being souls.
Oh, so then we have to murder them again. I see. That's extremely useful. How about we do something else? And I'm handing you the dice, Seski.
And a group of them just lunges out and piles onto Key, the blue blade, just sort of grasping at it and dragging it to the ground.
And so the dice allow me to do something that actually.
Yes, once you roll the dice, you get to seize control and do something impactful.
Okay.
Or do whatever you want, really. It just means you get to keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
yeah.
Like, remember
So-
how I said you can neither succeed nor fail
Right.
without the dice? You can actually fail intentionally
Okay.
at whatever you were trying to do.
So we remain in the glum, and so Seski reaches down and pulls the blade up through them, and they begin to fall apart and die as Seski wades in and starts reaping all of their souls, and says, "I will cut a path."
And we will follow.
Yeah, I'll take up the rear then.
So, by way of explanation here, the scene will then continue until somebody chooses to pass the dice back to me. So that's the condition where this phase will end. So we're going to carry on now. The skeletons, as these souls are being reaped, there are some whose souls were cut free and not seized. And these souls are sort of flying up into the sky and gathering together into some sort of conglomeration, a vortex turning into a massive wailing cloud of souls. And as the reaping continues, some of them even look like they're tearing themselves free of the skeletons out of their own will. And they're
Back
creating...
home.
Huh?
I said, just
The gate, Seski, are we almost at the gate? I think Titus is looking up at this cloud of souls, quite worried.
Just a little further.
There's this teeming cloud, and out of nowhere, they descend upon all of you, enveloping you, and seizing upon you, seizing upon your own souls with a ferocious energy.
And I will pass the dice to Liv.
So you hear in your ears and in your minds like these great cries, like these painful cries. It's like a migraine, but for your soul. And just this shrieking that comes one after the other.
I
And
would suggest you not be so cavalier with life, Seski. I howl and they drag me to the ground, and we are still glum. And her
That's no good. A 3 and a 2.
oh,
That's special.
special
Oh,
rules.
special.
When both dice are less than 3, this is called, I believe, is that the mystery?
I'd have to find the sheet in front of me.
Oh, no. So that's a tie. That's a stymie.
Yeah, it's a
It's a
stymie.
moral. It's a moral if it's not a tie. So,
I see.
yes, if neither die is greater than 3 and they're not tied, we learn a moral. So a moral has 2 pieces: the unintended consequence and the lesson that should have been learned. So when you roll a moral, continue as you normally would. Your rogue will do what your rogue will do, but something unfortunate, unwanted, or horrible will result from your rogue's actions. So carry on, and introduce something horrible.
So the gauntlets, they sort of like almost instinctively cover her and protect her. But you see a part of her get pulled up into this cloud of souls, and then she becomes this hardened juggernaut, and says, "Is this worth the loss?" And there's this flash of light as that little strand of her soul going from her body up to this ball snaps. And for a moment, all is quiet. All is gone. It is just this barren plain. Not so much as a wishbone or a blade of grass left standing. Just the three of them.
So what is the lesson that Liv could have learned if she was paying attention?
Never trust death in the realm of life.
Cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the unintended consequences is that she has lost a lot of herself in the process. Her memory of the home that was and her gauntlets are the vast majority of what's left of her now.
Cool. So,
tell me, Seski, do you like what you made me? I say, and I open some of the armor, and it just reveals this blue, hollow being that's just like the thinnest threads. That's the remainder of my soul.
ooh.
At the end of the everflow, all things are thus.
Oh, can it with your mysteries. Armor snaps back together, and I will hand my dice to the overplayer now.
Very good. So that ends the rogues phase. And for better or for ill, it is certainly possible to end the rogues phase in many ill places. So, the next phase is going to be a lore, no, not lore, what is it? Discovery phase. So in the discovery phase, we reveal parts of the world or the plot, and we uncover clues as to where we go next. So the setting for this is beyond the gate in the River of Stars. So, and I should roll for the tone, shouldn't I? The tone is jovial. So the River of Stars, this astral location of just burning fires that shine out with a radiance unsurpassed for thousands and thousands of miles. There's an incredibly intense warmth beneath your feet as you walk down the river, and it feels like home in some ways, and you can't quite understand why, especially one like Seski, but this feels strangely familiar. So I'm going to I hand the dice off, right?
Yeah, and then you roll right away whoever you hand them to.
Correct. So I'm going to hand them off to Liv.
All right.
Who will roll the dice and then ask. She reveals something that her rogue knows or is just now discovering.
Glum.
Okay.
She sighs in a way that would probably sound like she was crying if, well, she still had a body.
So what does she reveal, and then what is your loaded question for me?
Sure. You know, despite Milo no longer having toes, despite all that, I feel as if I'm walking through my mother's garden. The grass is sticking up between my toes. Every now and then, a little bit of clover, a little bit of our dandelion. This place knows me.
And so what is your question to me?
I think it is just that. How does this place know me?
How does
implying
this
that this memory does not come from myself, but
Yes.
is projected from the outside.
The River of Stars is a repository for the memories of all beings. They flow into the River of Stars and are safeguarded there. And I think we're good to continue. So in the discovery phase, the overplayer decides whether or not we're going to continue. And I think we should continue. So River, if you would pass the dice to another rogue.
Yes. And we do apparently have our 3 items of our first motif now.
Very good. So you can continue to record motifs in the second motif slot. However, at least one motif in the second motif must echo one of the 3 elements of the first motif in some way.
Let's see what Seski is pondering.
And I immediately re-roll these.
Yes, you immediately roll them, and then you tell me something that your rogue knows or is just now discovering, and then you ask me a loaded question about that discovery.
Okay, it is Glum.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a repository for all memories of all things. And there is long ago, there was it was the first time Seski was the psychopomp for the god. And it is a memory that Seski has blocked out. It would be impossible to continue the job. But it rushes up out of the star stuff and invades their mind, and you see Seski walking along with the Earth Mother, and as she walks, she leaves these roots behind her, and she says, "This, when you see me again, it will be the end of all things." And Seski says, "I will never see you again," and passes her on beyond the gates.
And what is your question?
Where will I see her again?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. You will see her again on the island where time itself has no meaning.
I will pass the dice on over to Titus.
Perfect. Let's give these a roll. So I got a jovial.
Okay.
Nothing special.
By the way, to interject and explain one more thing, what your feats heroic are for. If you don't like the tone that your dice rolled, you can once per game cross out one of your feats heroic to replace the dice with that feat heroic.
Yeah, I'm actually going to use my trick, I think.
Okay.
So we're traveling through this. The river of, what was the word?
The River of Stars.
So we're traveling through the River of Stars, and I think Pantheon, this little deer made of star stuff, almost blends right in as it's leaping from like star cluster to star cluster, just finding the ones that are most suitable. And Titus is sort of stepping in behind it as he goes, and sort of, waiting next to Liv and Seski through this river. And there's this moment when the whole, like, rivers aren't supposed to shake, but it just, there's waves of it come crashing around and start to buffet us around, and it's like a hole opened up underneath us, and things start to like swirl around, and this river turns into a bit of a whirlpool and starts to shake and crack, and we find ourselves like falling through the holes of this crack, and just beyond the direction where we were heading, there's these figures. We can almost see their faces. They stand there, but as we're just about to understand who they are, the reality around us, or whatever this is, which is outside reality, crumbles beneath us and starts to swirl and flush us down. And so the thing I would have known, but don't, because of this mystery, is who wants to destroy, who are those figures conspiring to destroy this reality. Would have learned that, don't learn it. And instead, the doom, this question that lingers that we may have to answer later, is how much longer until the astral ori crumbles?
Very good. So this is a mystery. Mysteries are when your rogue fails or is stymied in their efforts by something of supernatural or unknown origin. And we may or may not find answers to those questions. Very good.
I'm going to hand those dice back to you if you would like them.
No, you. So
you call the end.
Yes, I call the end. So you just keep handing it off until I'm like, oh, we figured out enough stuff that I think I know where we're headed.
With the astral, sorry.
Go ahead.
With the star stuff washing over their faces, would that echo the waters of time washing flesh back onto the skeleton?
Ooh.
Oh, I love it.
Me.
Okay.
I mean, if you thought it was awesome. And only one of those elements needs to echo back.
Yeah. I'm going to give these dice back to Seski, actually.
All right. So, Greg, roll 'em.
All right. And we're sticking to Glum with Seski.
All right.
So we're being washed down, sort of down a rivulet off of this. And I think Seski pulls Key out and sort of tries to push it through the river and grab onto whatever's on the other side to hold back the direction we're going, because this is not the direction we wish to go, and is unsuccessful. and begins to flail wildly. And I'm going for a failure here. Perhaps starts reaching out and grabs the companions, and we are suddenly washed ashore somewhere. We're still in the discovery phase.
Yes.
So where is the worst place we could end up? Because I think we're there. Oh, you're muted.
The worst place that you could end up is in the abyss of unmaking.
Oh,
This is
how
a question.
he despises the abyss of unmaking.
You have just discovered the answer to that question.
I'm
I'll pass the
imagining
dice back to
we have
you.
like a shore, like a little beach, and like the ground starts to go up like it would go up to like a volcanic island, but instead it quickly inverts into this abyss.
Very good. I think I'm sorry, you were saying something?
I think you forgot to answer my question of who is behind this thing when we fell. My mystery question still gets an answer.
Okay.
We don't. Our characters don't know it, but we get to know it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna say
4 nerds behind computer monitors.
Yes.
Who's behind it? Is the Children of the Endless Void.
Beautiful.
So I think with all those answers, that's good to end the discovery phase.
Okay.
So just to complete the trio for now, and then move on to normal play, is the Rogues phase. The Rogues phase is the phase where stuff happens. And like this is the phase where you can travel vast distances, overthrow kingdoms, fight great battles in a single roll of the dice if you are asked to. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to pass the dice to Titus, and then I'm making a demand. So I'm going to say, Titus, show me how you foresaw this outcome and prepared for it.
So I got glum.
Okay.
The so we're washed up on the. Can you give me the quick description of what the shore feels and looks like again for a second? Oh, you're muted.
I thought River described the shore. It's we arrive on it, and then whatever we expect it to be, this shore, it inverts,
Right.
and it is all things are upside down. Light is dark, dark is light. It's negative space.
So washing up, Titus immediately finds their staff, finds Pantheon, and then gets their bearings, sees all of the negative direction, and then lifts up the hood on the Cloak of Time and disappears, and just like falls back through time, knowing that now that they're here. And there's a solid beat where it's not clear if Titus is ever coming back until stepping through the stars, stepping through the river of stars, steps out of Pantheon, not a different Titus, an older version of Titus, one that has traveled elsewhere in the river of stars, steps out of this star stuff that is their familiar, and like throwing a cloak over the throwing a veil over his own eyes, the world gets reversed again, so we can now see the shore as if it's supposed to, or as if it's no longer in negative space, but for what is really there, and holds veils for Liv and Seski should they wish to wear them.
I imagine that it was just long enough for Liv to just be like, come on, like do this like shrug gesture, and then he reappears.
So at this point, Rob may now hand the dice to anyone and make a demand of them. So it's always a show me how you X or show me how X. If Rob makes a demand of me, it's a demand to show you all something about the world.
And I'm going to do that just to be that person. Overplayer, show us how the children of the endless void are not done with us. Or show us how we know the children of the endless void are not done with us.
So that is glum. So everything is, you're looking out at everything, and it's strangely quiet. And as you walk along the shore, this slow sense of dread begins to build up because everything is too normal. And you just have this itch at the back of your mind that there should be something wrong happening, something more wrong. And as you look back and forth, and even at one another, in brief moments, it almost seems like your faces take on the semblance of the children of the void for just a fleeting moment, just like looking out through your eyes. So the children are definitely not done with you. Liv the Forsaken. Show me how you find a piece of the familiar in the midst of this strange land.
Well, let me. So I roll immediately, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So we're still glum, of course. So she's just going to start sort of speaking out loud. It says, I was stationed on a wonderful island for a little while. There's tropical fruits growing from every tree, sweet-smelling flowers everywhere we went. I sort of reach up to one of the trees and pull a very ripe fruit from the vines and split it into halves and throw one half to each of my companions. This isn't quite the same, but well, a place like this can only exist when there's something of great power beneath it. That tingling sense of unease also reminds me of the island, which could erupt spontaneously and without warning. And, choke entire towns with ash and smoke.
Violence beneath the surface.
Yes. I'm going to pass the dice to Seski now, and I will ask him, well, what will he give up to ensure that we are not harmed here?
Or like show me how you give something up to ensure we are not harmed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could be a secret. It doesn't have to be one of your that deserves a name. That would be that's stepping over a line.
Yeah.
That is your call.
That is my call, though. Yeah, I think Seski places the veil that Titus gave them and looks out and sees that although this is also where the river of the Star River.
Yeah, the river
lands.
stars.
Yes, this is also where the river of the Everflow reaches here as well. As all rivers have an origin, they all have a delta, and so Seski reaches out and grabs your hands and says, "We must swim against the river, but a different river. We must go back to the beginning of all things, before the abyss of unmaking was the temple of creation. And so I'm going to give up on the control of the Everflow to flow us back to the beginning of all things instead of the abyss of unmaking where all things will end."
Cool. So now any player can call for an end to this phase, by the way. So, but continue to pass the dice to someone else, make a demand until someone decides to make an end to the phase.
I'm going to pass to Titus.
And what is your demand?
Titus, show me why you have been here before multiple times.
Yeah, so we start moving up the current of, past the abyss of unmaking, against the flow of out of the river of stars back up through the Everflow to the beginning of all creation. And there's this moment when we arrive. I should roll the dice at some point, probably.
Oh yeah. You should you roll the dice immediately, right?
Stymied. Great. Good. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So the question was, show us. Can you remind me what the question was again?
Show us how you have been here multiple times before.
So show us how I've never been here?
No, been here. You have been here multiple times before.
So you failed to show them? No, it's
so I'm stymied, so I don't
Yeah, you don't successfully show them.
Right, okay, perfect.
So yes, when both dice are the same, it's a stymie, which means you fail on whatever you did.
Perfect. No, that's even better. So we get to the end that flips to jovial if we were going before. So yeah, there's a frantic moment now because we get to the creations. Perfect. They blocked us off. You've got us here again, Seski. It's all going to be all right. We can now finally save everything because they'd kept me out, but it's got to still be here, and they're rushing. Titus starts rushing through the lands of all creation, and the closer you get, things like just start being created. Every step you take leaves like new things in your wake as our footprints like ripple out and create these awesome forests and caverns and lands. Like as we're moving through it, except for this one constant, this temple, this place, and there's a basket, really, like a really simple basket on a stone pillar, and there's like really carefully nested straw in there. And Titus arrives and immediately like falls to his knees. No, it can't be. They've been here before. I was going to. The reason that it's the egg of creation. It's the only, like, it's the thing that holds this all together. Seski, they've been here and taken it. I can't show you why. Like, the only reason to be here is this egg. It's the only thing holding this apart. And almost as Titus is saying that, the straw starts to crumble and that pillar starts to crumble and the source of all creation starts to unwind itself as the egg is missing.
I think that's a good place to end the rogues phase. Someone was recording the motif.
Yep.
I wasn't sure whether we have to echo one of the second motifs.
You don't have. I believe it's one or the other. Is that correct?
One or the other, yeah. And it doesn't have to be the first one. It can be any of those three.
Yeah. So, like,
Okay.
if you just have something cool, write it down. The only time if you're under pressure is like if the third one, if neither's been echoed and you're on the third element.
I think this also means that the that Liv is restored in some fashion.
Oh, yeah.
The gauntlets, the armor retracts from the gauntlets, and you see a woman in a very fresh military uniform, close cropped hair, and the gauntlets actually fall from her wrists and hover behind her.
Ooh.
Ah,
So the new
nice to see these again.
The new phase is going to be a lore phase. So, and the overtone is jovial. So, as everything starts collapsing, like the rogues feel reality itself and time itself splinter apart into many facets of streams, and different memories, different moments of time, different events just erupt in a chaotic stream around you as you experience one thing after another, like joy, passion, great fear. All of these moments of humanity just end upon end. And I'm going to hand the dice to Seski to roll. So to roll and then describe something you discover and ask me a question about it.
Ooh, that's a stymie.
Oh, so the first, there's two things going on here. It's a stymie, and both of them are 3 or less.
So it's a mystery as well.
It is a mystery. Yeah. So first off, the overtone flips.
So does glum.
Yes.
Alternately, you do have your feats heroic if you wish
Correct.
to ignore this roll.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm good with what it is. I'll hold on to it.
Cool.
So it's a glum memory, and it has to reveal a mystery.
So it's a glum. So it's a stymie, which means that whatever you were hoping to hear the answer to isn't revealed to the rogue because of some supernatural reason.
It's the thing you should have learned that we, the players, get to know, but our characters don't.
Yes.
Wow. So I think I find myself on the island where time has no meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And the Earth Mother is there. And she's seated at the root of the trees, and she's very carefully knitting, but it's like organic. She's knitting like leaves and roots and branches with her hands. It's this beautiful braiding thing, and she reaches out and says, "Oh, my child, My child, I tried to warn you. I tried to warn you that you cannot give up the Everflow. But Seski cannot hear her.
So
and
what is the loaded question you have?
What was it? The children of
The children of the endless void.
The children of the endless. Why did the children of the endless void forsake Seski? Why did the children of the endless void, my sisters and brothers, forsake Seski?
Ooh. And the answer that he can't hear is that because he couldn't understand what they wanted. And so they forsook him because he was a danger.
So the mystery is not the question you asked the Jamage why you couldn't hear it. So
right.
So it's trying to answer the question of like something about something about why you didn't learn the answer to that question. Beautiful.
Yes, so I'm good with continuing. So pass the dice to another rogue.
Okay, and I will pass them to Liv. And do I have to ask a question?
No, Liv will roll and then come up with a
Right.
discovery and ask the question of me.
Okay. Oh, I got jovial.
All
My
right.
goodness.
Boring old jovial. We like it.
How do we catch the thieves of the egg? I mean,
Nice.
that's pretty direct.
And what is your discovery?
So what I discover are little bits of the eggshell. Now that I have something like human senses back,
Oh shit!
I feel something sort of snap between one of my feet, and I can smell that sort of that damp smell that all newly hatched things have. And it's leading somewhere. Ellipses.
So you can find the thieves of the egg by filling yourself with reality and creation. And then you will be drawn towards the egg itself and its thieves.
I'm not sure how she communicates this with the two of you. I'm guessing she holds up her gauntlets and they sort of float over to each of you with one digit extended and says, it's quicker if I just upload it into you. And if you guys nod, you'll get the information.
Nice.
And
I think I'm good getting maybe one or two more answers.
yeah, I want to see what Titus asks and has to offer.
Fuck's sakes. A 2 and a 1. So that's a moral. Okay. So
And unless you want to call upon a feat.
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna use this jovial feat.
All right.
I think. So the gauntlet touches Titus and there's this moment as this understanding is uploaded into his brain, and that's a whole new experience to him. But at this point, like he's on his knees, he's in tears. Reality is literally crumbling in front of him and unraveling. And he wipes his eyes and stands up and is like, there's still hope, everyone. And he picks up his staff again. The nose. He picks up his staff again and he slams it down and is like, we need a sled. We need to travel fast. And he just starts pulling all of these ideas together, and like his power is reaching down and not quite bracing reality from crumbling, but at least taking some of those bits and reshaping them into this vessel, and one that we can all step into before it falls into this void of nothingness, following that scent, following this the vague notion that whoever's out there who captured this egg and whatever's hatched from it, we might be able to catch up in time. And we get like we dive through reality, and then we see it. We see the destination. We see where we have to go.
Mm-hmm.
What's hatched from the cosmic egg?
I have a description, by the way, of this vessel. If you all want
Please,
to hear it.
yeah.
So it is like a canoe, but a little broader, a little longer, and it's lashed together from roots and earth and plants, and you'd swear you can see little straps of leather and everything being pushed forward by the gauntlets that are bobbing almost as if some sort of egg.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. So what is hatched from the egg of creation? What is hatched from the egg of creation is a new god. And I think that's where I'm going to cut the lore phase. So I think it's high time for another perilous phase.
Seems legit.
Yeah, that works.
So
Yep,
I roll. It is jovial, which makes perfect sense. So everyone, you basically, you've crashed down from your canoe to the site where the egg is, and all around you, you can feel, you can see reality itself struggling to hold together. It trembles with a mighty effort, but it is slowly starting to be torn apart by these forces pulling upon it. Seski, you have the dice.
I think Seski reaches down and touches this newly born god, and has before been able to sense when this god will fall and when they will pass the river.
Mm-hmm.
But being disconnected from the river is very disturbed that they can no longer feel when this god will die. And
Earth around you starts rupturing into flames, and fissures open up in the ground, threatening to swallow you and the new god.
The child, Seski, protect the child.
and I will. I have no control over time anymore.
And a rift opens in the heavens themselves. A rift opens, and from beyond, there's just, it's not a glow, but just a blank whiteness of nothing. a completely undone, unpainted canvas of reality.
Question: someone of us can seize the dice.
No, only Seski can do something about it.
He can.
The rest of you may slip and struggle, but it is Seski who controls this.
All right. Well, I think the goblin's going to fly up into the air and try to hold this encroaching canvas back, but Liv isn't making any progress.
Yeah, like as Liv tries to pull it back together, Liv feels that tearing apart of reality, like transferring down into her very sinews.
Yeah, I think Titus sort of sees this start to be pulled apart and starts to like throw or pull his own star stuff together, pull the little bits of creation they have and send them towards Liv, creating this like constellation-like armor where like almost like a version around them, a larger star version, as if they're this colossus of stars, and that responds to Liv's movements, trying to like empower them to hold this back.
As you look around and this continues to... Oh, wait, did you roll?
I did.
No, it's still... Oh,
I rolled. It's jovial. And I think because Seski is but two things now. And Sess is going to actually give up on Sess. And open up, because Seski is the blade that reaps in the graveyard where they rest, and all of the other gods who have ever gone beyond those gates are coming back through him and trying to fill the nothingness.
Cool.
Like paint upon the canvas.
Oh, cool.
I imagine it's deafening and blinding and utterly confusing as every known to any culture and in any reality is sermon.
Pretty much.
I just filled in the last motif because like painting upon a canvas, the dead gods try to fill the void is...
Yeah.
Ugh.
So special rules now kick in, and I'll explain that before we move on. When you roll the dice, instead of responding normally to them, you may choose to reincorporate something called a thread. So, ways you can incorporate a thread. Answer a mystery. So we've got those two questions there that are mysteries, and you can answer one of them with your roll of the dice. You can demonstrate that your rogue has learned from somebody's moral. And it doesn't have to be the person who rolled the moral originally. It can be anyone. So, like, if you demonstrate that you have learned to never trust death in the realm of light, you can reincorporate that. Or you can combine elements from... Wait, is it combine two elements from one motif?
Yeah, so two of the elements of one motif in your narration. And
so you combine two of those into your response. And then once you've reincorporated a thread, you're done rolling the dice. And once everyone but one person has done that, the game will end. So that is now on the table. Does that make sense?
And I think the last person gets a bit of an epilogue or something.
Yep.
Cool.
Do I pass the dice to begin with?
No. So we carry on as normal, but now after you roll the dice, you have the option of reincorporating a thread. You pass the dice when you feel like it, which means that you can hold onto them as long as you wish.
I will pass the dice. I will pass the dice to Titus.
Because we're still in the perilous phase, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So as the gods are flung onto this canvas, they come alive and they perceive one another, and not all of these gods liked one another. And so they begin to fall to in combat against one another, almost intent on slaying one another all over again, and completely undoing the good work that you've done so far. they've fallen into this just calamity. Like, you see one of the old gods of pestilence, who's just impaled by the god of law, and falls from the gap, just leaking this cloud of disease and plague, and crashing on the ground as like this decay and death spill out on the ground all around you. And the rot and the decay of the god of pestilence actually races across the ground, heading straight for this new god.
I'm gonna roll the dice there.
All right.
So I'm stymied, but I'm ignoring this stymie because the dice hate me, and I'm going to reincorporate a thing.
Cool.
So Titus sees these gods rushing to fill the gap, seeing them pour out of Key as this graveyard just gets upturned, and looks back in horror as Key is entirely like left the god at their feet as the as they open themselves up, and so this child god is now just certainly not the level of care and attention that Titus thinks it deserves, and he Key, you fool! What are you doing? And he rushes over there and throws up the cloak of time and is like fighting through time stops, but it has no meaning here anymore. And so even when it's stopped, pestilence is continuing to race towards this god. The only thing that can start things anew is this like war of undead creatures happens around them, and it all takes on a slightly different view as it's happening. It's not just it's like you're watching the concepts as well as you're watching the gods. So like it's literally all of the sickness that has ever gone anywhere, and you see all of this suffering in this oozing blob that's passing forward through time, and you see like every law and every sentence and every judgment that's trying to pin it down as it gets there. And Titus, like, there's this moment where he scoops up the child and is now holding it like at a loss for what to do. I trusted you with this, he says, almost choked up, and sees that Key themselves is nothing left, just this husk, no longer a graveyard, no longer anything. And while they're like caught up in this moment, opening themselves, he takes the cloak off of himself and puts it on Key, sort of locking them in or outside of time for a moment, just enough time to dash away from there towards Liv with the god in his arms. Come with me. We need to take care of this, please. And so never trust death in the realm of life.
Come where?
Anywhere away from here, somewhere.
I love that I saw that coming too. I'm like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hold on to these dice until stuff gets bad again.
All right. So, but with all of that disrupting things, and especially with Liv's attention being diverted, the rupture itself tears even wider, and the foundations of this reality itself, shudder and shake. The sun has been running backwards across the sky hundreds of times in a moment.
I'll give those dice to Liv.
And the air itself begins to fall apart. Oh, did you roll?
But I will. So a moral. So bad stuff still happens with morals, correct?
So you just rolled the double ones?
No.
The two
Oh, sorry.
That's just
double fours.
So morals are like a 7 to 9 in Apocalypse World. They're like, you still do your thing, but there's a catch that should teach you a lesson. But you can ignore them.
What I'm going to do is actually seem for me to use my chest. It's weirdly appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be really super.
Nice.
And she.
So the overtone is still jovial, I think.
Yes, she lets go of the canvas, and it starts to pull the gods into it. And I say, "You back up to form. Your side is no more. You cannot die. Your struggle will be endless. And that struggle will be all that defines reality if you let it." And I think the consequence she suffers is that geez, I don't even know what sort of consequence she would suffer that would point to this. Perhaps the
Well, it doesn't have to be her either. You know, it could be another, like somebody else suffers a consequence, for example. Or the world suffers a consequence.
I think that associated with the sky starts to fuzz out even faster, like leaves, and the reflection of light on the water starts to get replaced with this blank canvas of nothingness. As she looks around and says, I have an idea, but I don't know that it would ever work. And
I trust you. Go with it.
She starts digging at the ground with all four of her limbs and the two gauntlets. She says, if we can get back to the River of Stars, we can get...
Oh no.
Digging and digging and digging, but it's what you know, things like that which are made of nothing catch and snag, and they start to block her path. And I'm gonna hand narration back to the over player.
Oh man. Well, that means that's where the perilous phase ends. So,
cool.
What do I do? What? You know what? Let's move back to a lore phase. Because that seems like a really funky thing to do now that you've got this cataclysmic conflict. We're back to Glum. So I think that in an instant, everything, you all stand in the midst of this space of void and flickers of the realities you've known just sort of weave in and out of existence, just sort of phasing here and there very softly. And there's just this great sense of loneliness as you wonder, is this all that remains of reality? And I'm going to hand the dice to Key. So make a discovery, ask me a question, or roll the dice, make a discovery, and ask me a question.
And ideally try and reincorporate something
yes.
to bring us into a conclusion.
Right, yes. Okay. So I think Key, who is now but a blade, that sort of floats, is disoriented at first, and is because Key is, when Key fells a god, the god, all of the gods, sins and pleasures are recorded along the blade, and finds itself for the first time completely blank. And then it reaches out, and suddenly Key alone can hear the Earth Mother. And she says, "Ah, my child, you took on too much. You saw too much." And I guess my question to you, and so the question, the mystery I'm answering is, Seski cannot hear the Earth Mother because Seski began to reap the gods, and reaped her first.
Oh.
But the question I have for you is, how can the river, the Everflow, begin again?
The Everflow can begin again when the new god sheds their first tears. And with that, the game closes and River gets an epilogue to just wind up the story.
So here's a notion. Liv and Titus, they are walking through a forest path, and there's there's the child laughing and playing with this little object that rattles, and Liv's gauntlets are nowhere in sight, and we see that the gauntlets are just a toy, a rattling toy for this god, and his first tears were tears of joy at some silly little bauble that it has no clue the power of.
That's really cool.
Nice. Oh, well done.
Right.
Yay!
That was Swords Without Master. I'd like to thank you all for playing. This has been phenomenal. Man, like, my games just keep getting trippier and trippier when it comes to swords. This is great.
This was definitely, in a word, epic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we started there and did not shy away from destroying the world and starting over.
Gosh.
A couple of times, I think, even.
Like so many moments, I'm like, man, how do I bring the storm?
Oh, and I almost imagined that we did connect Key back to the River of Stars. So I imagine something like Key the Starlit or something like that now.
Nice.
Sort of a manifestation of the River of Stars.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
that's a really neat game. I need to read up more of the rules, because I always, I freeform come up with ideas, but like the structure part of it, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Okay, we'll go for it.
Swords Without Master is in Volume 1, Issue 3 of Worlds Without Master.
I will look into that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But the easiest way to learn it is to play it with people who have played it a bunch, because honestly, the text is sorry, Epi, but basically unparsable.
I mean, when I think about it, I'm like, how would you even, how would you even write down these rules in such a way that people just understand? I'm like, and once I play it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Right. All right, I got a game in 7 minutes.
Cool.
I will
All right.
step off.
Sounds great. Thank you so
Love
much.
and
It was
love.
really lovely.
And
Cool.
you can have
Nice
another
playing with you.
session right
Oh,
now
I
if you wanted.
think I'm good for the evening.
All righty.
But, thank you all so much. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
Bye.
It was nice playing with you.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Absolutely. Bye.